Hello and welcome to Stampscaping 101. We're going to do a scene that I've done before, but we're going to do a little bit of a twist on it. We're going to have a piece of the printable vinyl holographic sticker paper. This one happens to be by You Ink It, and it's one of the, I don't know, different patterns that comes in their multi-colored pack. And it's really quite cool. I see it as for use with anything that you want to look shimmering. All right, it's just a really fun type of surface to stamp on and utilize in our scenes. Okay, so this is going to represent the shining, glittery, I don't know, specular lighting, little sparkly light reflections coming off of the water. Of course, it's going to be done in a kind of a rainbow pattern here, as opposed to just, kind of monochrome chrome. I just realized my salvia blue pad is starting to crumble, so... Alright, I'm going to stamp this out just on a light blue here, and I'll show you why I'm doing that here in a minute. And it's just a very light color impression. I'm going off at the top of the card by a little bit. I had misstamped it there, so I just adjusted, but again, it's not going to be, this one's not going to be so critical in terms of my positioning here with this impression, okay? Because I'm going to be stamping the impression again. I just want to see just the general gist. Look how crumbly my pad is. I want to see just the general gist of this wave pattern on here. Okay, bad stamp to stamp that with. All right. Very crumbly, but I can kind of make out the imagery on there. I don't know, maybe stamping it on something slightly darker would have been better, but I can see it enough. All right, and this isn't going to be so critical that it's a make or break type of thing, like at all, okay? I want to emphasize that because that's what's going to happen. You're going to get into it and it's like, oh my God, yeah, that didn't come out. These kind of block out patterning types of applications on these stamps, there's so much kind of leeway you have in terms of your applications on here. It just, trust me, everything comes out just fine once you stamp your main image over the top of these blocked out, that's what I call it, backgrounds, okay? All right, so what I have here is some Brilliance White pigment ink. If you don't have it, get a white and black pad, all right? You say, hey, I already have pigment ink. Well, you have like, I don't know, whatever, probably 20, 30 different types of pads. But this one, maybe you have more. I do. This is a specialty ink. It's just like getting, something that can be used on practically everything, where other types of pads have their limitations. But this opens up, the possibility of applying different type of media on here that you normally wouldn't be able to. So this is just an unbelievable type of water-based ink. It's not an oil-based ink. Okay, that's the big difference between Brilliance inks. It's fast-drying water-based ink, not fast-drying like StazOn, but it's just faster drying. It can dry on glossy cardstock without any problem. They use it for not so much embossing. You can if you're doing this type of impressions on glossy cardstock because it doesn't dry so fast. But on this type of paper, it does dry really fast because the emulsion on this type of paper is designed that way because you're usually running it through your inkjet printer, okay? So what I'm doing here, I'll hold this up and you can see what I'm doing here in a second. But I'm kind of laying down a little bit of an application of this ink over the front of this wave area. I'm leaving this area in here kind of a little bit bare. Yeah, I'll put a little bit of tone in there, but I want this area in the center there to shimmer. So this is what I'm doing right here. So see how uneven and blotchy my application of ink is? You just don't need it to go on super, super smooth, okay? Sometimes I'm wondering if blotchier is better because your impressions come out a little bit more varied in terms of what's showing of this paper and what's been blocked out. And you have a little bit more light and dark kind of interplay in there. Okay, now you can stamp over the top of this. Now I'm going for my actual impression with this, the one that I'll be using, you know, because it'll be black. You can use just about any ink. You can use your dye-based inks. If you have a black Brilliance, that one's one of the best ones to use. You can use your StazOn ink. A VersaFine Clair should work on here just fine. You know, your oil-based pigment inks, okay? Is there one that's better than the other? I don't know. I think I'm going to go for my... I'll go for my Brilliance. That one's going to give me a little bit of a thicker application, but like I said, everything works pretty good. All right, so inking this up again. And then, let me see, let me get all those little fuzz balls off from my Salvia blue pad, one of my favorite blue pads colors. Marvy doesn't make pads anymore, so I'll be using something else in the future. All right, so let me get this lined up roughly. Sorry if my head's in the way, but I'll bring this down here. I'll try to get the least amount of my big head in the frame here. All right, large stamp. Go for a good amount of pressure distributed. Oops. Let me get that ink off my finger. I might have stamped it a little bit high again, but that's okay because we're going to be cutting this out of the scene anyway. And then you have your waves in there, but watch this, see? In the down here, you don't have it shimmering so much right around these waves, but look at that shimmering ocean wave area. Isn't that fun? All right, now, see, I normally don't do things where I'm cutting out things, but this is going to go right up here, and then down here is going to be sand and, I don't know, different things down here, okay? I just wanted that top part to be shimmery, but this is like the easiest cutout you'll ever do. It's like a rectangle. Okay, but it's going to go like over the top of this, like about like so. I'll have to trim off the edges right there. This is a sticker paper, so it's going to apply just, you know, really easy. You can cut this out with whatever you want. I'm just going to use a pair of scissors. Boy, I can't remember the last time. Actually, I'll cut along with these waves right here. Can't remember the last time I did something where I cut something out. Maybe where I did some masking or something like that, you know. If you've watched these videos a lot, you know I don't do a lot of real careful masking, but occasionally there is like a stamp or two. I'm thinking like the lighthouse sometimes. All right, so this is going up here, and this is going to be this sandy area, okay? So a little bit different. I do want a little bit of shimmer down here, so I was thinking about maybe bringing in some silver ink or something like that, just to be a little bit reflective, okay? But before we stick this on here, it's going to be easier to get this background going on here first, and then we'll just adhere this right over the top wherever we want it to go. Okay? All right, so let's see. Think about not having this live. I can go and grab some of my materials here, so I'll get everything I need for that, and we'll resume. All right, we have our pieces here. Let me get my bearings as far as where this is going to go. I'll make a little note of it right about right here, where the horizon, or not the horizon, but the waves will end roughly about like that. So I need to go with the sand pattern at least up to these points from top to bottom. Okay, we have the tiny rocks and tiny rocks small image right here. And let's see, this goes like that. What I'm going to be using is a couple different values of kind of sandy tones, you know, brown tones. We'll start off with some antique linen. I want this to be roughly lighter right here and a little bit darker on the edges, okay? Now you can get real free form with this, okay? This is just kind of being used as a pattern, so you don't want to think about this too much like a stamp, like I'm making impressions, because we're going to be doing a lot of these, so you can just tap it like this. Kind of don't change your angle too much, you know, once you have it established. Go above that line right there. I do have the small version of this that I'm going to be using too, so I'll be using a lot of that one. I'll add more of it on the perimeter like this, so it gets darker right around the perimeter. And when it gets drier, I'm using it on the interior here, where it's giving me a very, very light. This tone right here is really, really light to begin with, so even in this, like the second stamping, it's practically, you know, invisible. So, you know, keep that in mind. Don't start doing this and say, hey, wait a minute, you know, this doesn't look, why isn't it getting any darker? This is a really light color. And if I put a gazillion layers of it, it'll only get as dark as the, the most saturated version of that, okay? But that being said, you know, we have a decent little kind of lighting scheme just using our first color here, which is the lightest one we'll be using. Okay, here's walnut stain. Just, you know, a little bit darker, but let's test it and see how dark it is. It's a pretty decent, you know, I don't know, it's like a 50% brown value or something like that. I won't use as much of this one. This. We're going to smooth all this out later too, okay? So if it doesn't look like, you know, real smooth to you, don't worry about it. Neither does mine right here. Okay, and that's that. It doesn't look like a fantastic application of it, you know, like super smooth or anything like that. Doesn't need to be. Now let's go to our tiny rock small, and we'll have some smaller ones in here as well. Now these ones are small texture. I can barely see it in here using the antique linen. Let's switch up. Can't see it. Walnut stain. Okay. Now I'm going to have some baby sea turtles in there, so I don't want too much of this darker impression in there. Otherwise, it'll look like, you know, it'll be hard to tell where the sea turtles are within this space if I darken it in too much, even though I am going to be stamping those in black. Let's see this right here. We made quick order of getting our kind of glistening sand looking patterning on here, lighting. Grab paper towel, sponge, whatever you use for your ink applications, and I'll go for some of this antique linen here. I'll get a good dollop going. Okay, my pad's a little bit dry, so I don't know how much I'm going to be able to get of this, but I'm swiping this from the outside in. I'm just really lightly doing this, okay? Like this. Don't, you know, and again, don't rush it. Don't say, oh my God, I can't see any, you know, why isn't that like black is black, you know, dark is black? It's because we're, you know, toning in like a really light shade like this, okay? Utilize your drier version to get really dry, very light applications in that light area right there, okay? But look at this glow that we have right here. I'm swiping it like this. I mean, you can go around in a little pattern like this if you want to. Whatever is comfortable for you. Keep it nice and ergonomic, you know. But look at that illuminated, glowing sand, though, huh? Doesn't that look a little kind of shimmery to you? I mean, it's, you know, we barely did anything. It's a super easy type of process right here. People aren't used to kind of stamping a, you know, a single stamp out, though, like 100 times on a card, so it seems like a foreign type of thing. But you can think of this as like a, you know, just as a texture or something like that, as opposed to a stamp, you know. Change your mindset about making the clean impression within just, you know, it's more of a textural tool. I mean, you can stamp individual impressions of it, you know, and get clean impressions, but on this case, I didn't want, you know, to be a bunch of just rocks everywhere. You know, like big rocks, because, you know, these little turtles have to crawl across it. Okay, now this is the walnut stain again. And see, we're just using those same colors that we stamped our impressions in, like that. It kind of blends things together. It mellows out a lot of the patterning on there. Meaning it doesn't look so busy texturally because you've brought this back up. You know, the background darker to the color of the impressions, okay? For the most part. And that is that right there, okay? So this is how this is going to be looking on here. It looks kind of weird right now and kind of unrelated right now. So we're going to try to, you know, create enough of a connection between this area and down here, okay? Because it's very, very foreign looking, I know that. Okay, so I can see how kind of darker this is, just in general. When you go like that, it's a little bit more kind of glittery and open. But let's see here. What I'm going to do, see how this kind of has this little bluish tinge to it in green? This is what it's going to look really weird to many, is that I am going to bring in some of those blue tones into that bottom area. You can do it with the colored pencils. I'm going to do it with a little bit of a dye-based ink here. This is a Memento, a real pale blue, okay? Like I said, if you're a little bit gun-shy about that, then, you know, take your just light-toned colored pencils and bring some of that in there, okay? But this is where I start to kind of create a better connection between these two here. They don't have to look alike. That's the whole point of doing it separate, you know, a separate texture. You know, this semi-gloss paper, that one's the, you know, the rainbow holographic sticker paper. But here we go with this. And see that just light tinge? Keep your lighting down here. Don't tone it all out, okay? You know, with blue. Don't tone all your light area especially, okay? See this right here? See those brown tones and blue? They really harmonize a lot better than you'd think they would, huh? When you think about like sand or something like that. But look at that glow that's working down there. See, even just like that little color like that, kind of, it's creating a little bit more of a connection between those two areas. Okay, and let me try, use a little bit of a darker blue, a Bahama blue. I'll just put like a little dab in there like that, blot it off a little bit, okay? Because I don't want it too strong. You know, I still want this to have, you know, be more kind of brownish, sandish looking than blue, or whatever, turquoise, you know, whatever kind of color it's kind of mixing to form here. Okay, that is that right there. All right, now I'm going to, this is stamped in black. I'm going to bring in a little bit of black into this. Or maybe we should do an intermediate color like a gray. Okay. So I'm just kind of bringing this up a little bit darker at a time. This is gray right there on the lower corner. I like to make my perimeters a little bit darker, just to kind of frame our scenes off. On this case right here, it's kind of interesting because I usually don't have this top part that I'm gluing down there, okay? So it seems strange, just kind of stop right there for me. But we're gonna give this a try and see how or if it works. If it works, does it work well? To what degree? All right, this is black, but you can see it's more of just like a, you know, light gray. Be careful that you don't bring this in too far, but if you do like this, it's with a very light version of that color, which is black. Okay, this is how this is looking right here. So it's starting to kind of, you know, yeah, I wouldn't say merge, but it's connecting more, a little bit more completely, I should say. The more of a connection you make between those two areas. I don't know, maybe it's easier just with the colored pencils, I don't know. We'll test the colored pencils too on here. All right, so this is what this is looking like right here. Okay. I think we're just about ready to adhere these. All right, so in the foreground here, let's add a little bit of foreground down here. And let's go ahead and add. I'm going to go for a couple darker impressions here now with these tiny rocks. See, down here, I mean, I can't see all of my sand as much anymore because of all the toning that I've laid over the top of it, but let's go and get a little bit more of a definitive texture, okay? Or, yeah, texture, impression quality. That. Okay, you can do maybe a couple black impressions. Maybe I'll add in my little turtles first, though. Okay. This is the block that was given to me recently. It's a little bit small here, so I have the image at a little bit of an angle here. Maybe I'll use a StazOn with this one. Yeah, we'll just go for the dye-based ink. Or let me take a look at it again. Well, I don't know if I need to. All right. Okay, little baby turtles. Aren't those cute? And we'll go for the smaller impression too. Like this. Making their way. All right, now let's stamp out these foreground little bushes. Maybe their eggs were laid at the base of these little bushes here. Let's add a little variety. Let's go for a couple different colors of this. Let's go with both dark green and black, I think. I don't want to go too high because I don't want these leaves to go underneath my waves. Actually, that one might a little bit. No, this one's up there. That's why I have those little markings down there. You can't see the marks too well anymore, though. All right, so this is green there. And let's go for a nice dark black. Like I said, maybe it stays on, it would be better, I don't know. And I'm doing this a little bit off the first impressions so that, you know, it doesn't look like I'm just trying to go over that same area. I want this to look a little bit more varied. So I'm not stamping it right over the top, like I said, of the green impressions. Okay, so I have that foliage right there, and then the ocean will look like that. Right there. See that? We'll get that little shimmery type of texture. All right. Coming along. There's a lot of textures in here for me to play around with. I guess this is the time to go ahead and apply this. This is the hardest part of the sticker paper at times, is getting that backing off of the from the top layer. There we go. When I say this is the hardest thing, I'm kind of joking, but sometimes it's really hard to get. I have to work at it a while. Okay, let's see. Just trying to get this roughly centered here. If I'm off a little bit, not really any big deal. Okay. I was a little bit off. All right, let's see right here. All right, see this little part right here. I'll trim that off. Yeah, let's just take the scissor right here. I usually kind of trim off a little bit off the edges of these horizon or mirrored cards anyways. Okay, so we have that. Now we have our imagery right here. We can see where everything is in relation to this area down here. By the way, that vinyl sticker paper it's pretty strong, so it adheres very well. Okay, so let's start taking some of these colored pencils and start toning in some of the shadows of this form, or just, I don't know, it's not all the shadows, but let's bring some color into it, and let's bring some additional colors down here. I can see that this area down here is still a little bit damp, so I need to be careful about coloring that. I just smeared that right there. Looks like my pad was like super juicy there, so I'll remedy that in a bit. I'll show you how I do that. Okay, now you can't really color vinyl sticker paper, okay? And you say, well, wait a minute, so what are you doing? I'm coloring the Brilliance White pigment ink that I laid down underneath this impression right here, okay? That's what this colored pencil is sticking to. If you try to have it, apply it directly on top of vinyl, unless you have like some super, super soft pencils, I don't think it'll adhere at all. Okay. So right in here, I'm just adding some tone into those shadow areas, okay? And you say, well, where's the shadow areas? The darker areas on the impression right here, so you can see, you know, those little waves in there. Now, I didn't apply that white over everything, so, or under everything, I should say. So it might not adhere, but if it doesn't, no big deal, okay? I'm just applying it where I can. Remember how I did it darker on the outside edges, lighter in the middle? I'm kind of doing roughly the same type of toning convention here, okay? shading convention. Now I added a little bit of tan or white around in this area, so I'm going to bring in some of these kind of brown tones right in here to represent, you know, a little bit more sand or something like that. Maybe this one right here, this one, colored pencil, is actually called sand. Not that that's the same color as down here, but it's, you know, it's pretty close. Like that. I am going to bring some of this into this area just to bring a little bit of a connection between this top portion and the lower portion. Yeah, you can come down here too, you know, into your scene, but watch out for all that stuff. It's still wet. Maybe I should have done that later. All right, so we went with one blue. Let's hit it with a little bit more of an aqua blue. Well, aquamarine blue. Coming off the top of this a little bit too. All right, here's a little bit of darker blue. Let's hit some of the shadow areas in here a little bit deeper. Right underneath the lip of the waves. Maybe do it a little bit uneven, you know, a little bit darker over here, a little darker over here, lighter in the, you know what I mean? You don't have to apply everything absolutely uniform. Kind of shading my rocks a little bit. All right, so that's looking pretty cool now. I haven't really even incorporated these two areas in as much yet, but let's start doing that. Let's add a little bit of black in here, a little bit of shading right around that wave area. It's a little bit raised. I'm not able to get right in there exactly, but close enough, I guess. Kind of the bottom left and right corners. If you want to frame things off a little bit, you can. I'm going to use a little bit of a paint pen in these bushes here, being that I kind of smeared it around. Actually, everything's a little bit wet there still. All right, here's a little bit of black, so I'll hit some of these areas within the waves again. Just in those shadow areas, kind of roughly where I put the dark blue. Do it with black as well. All right. That looks really fun, I think. All right, let's take a look at some pen work here. All right. These are acrylic paint pens. And I'm going to add some nice little, I don't know, highlights, I guess, on some of these leaves. It's roughly the same color as that dark green, but maybe this will give it a little bit more dimension. Doesn't show up too much. But again, I just want to get rid of some of those little that smear mark right in here. Okay, go like that. That was a dark green. Now let's go with a light green here. And I'll just add a little bit of a highlight on tops of some of my green leaves. Makes it a little bit more shimmery. Okay. And then let's hit it with some white in here. I think white and a little bit of a kind of a warmer beige. Let's see, that was a little bit peach. I have that pen around here somewhere that I'm looking for. Maybe it's this one on the bottom. Well, let's just use these two. And I'll use them in this area down here. Shake up your pens before each use to get a nice, as opaque of application as you can. All right. And I'm adding this roughly in the same area of this color, so it doesn't really stand out at all. But then I start taking it into slightly darker areas down here. So you start in the light areas about the same value, and then you go into slightly darker areas, okay? This one's not really going to play much of a role as much as the white will. But I start off with something that doesn't stand out very much, and then I get a little practice with it, and then I go into my color that's going to stand out more, a more obvious mark. Okay, here's another tone. That would be good. All right, so I'm going to give this area down here a little bit of a shimmer. It's white. Applying it over the tops of some of those bluish applications, because those bluish applications are in the lighter area. I'm applying light into light. And we'll put some of it down, because that sand, it's like glass, right? It's like what they make glass out of. So, and then when it's wet, it really kind of shimmers in the light. So that's what this is going to represent here. Okay, let me put some of it on these leaves, and then hopefully we can eradicate any visible memory of my smearing of my foreground leaves. Okay, so that is what that looks like right there. Okay, now in this scene, that is really fun. I'm going to apply some additional pigment ink right in these lighter areas in here, okay? We can see how light this is. Let's bring a little bit of that same light into our crashing waves. Especially down here in the foreground, okay? So I'm just going to apply it like this. This is my pad is not super wet, so I'm not going to be applying like a big blob of ink. If it is on yours, dab it off a little bit, then take it in there, okay? And I'm just putting it right on the kind of the top of the cresting waves. The crest or the spindrift. It's that little spray that's coming off the crest of the wave, the top of the wave. That's what they call a spindrift. think my brother's first surfboard was made by this surf shop that went by the name of Spindrift Surf Boards or something like that. Okay, so see my waves are standing out a little bit more now, right? See that? It really stands out like that, but you can see where I've applied this white pigment ink right over the top in there. You can do a little bit more maybe in the background here. Remember, just try to avoid kind of hurrying the process and getting a big blob of ink going blob, 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 blob. It's a little bit harsh unless you're going for like a kind of a real bold, kind of a expressionist, type of application of media, which would be cool too. Just lightly dab on there and just build it up. It doesn't take long to do this at all. It takes the same amount of time as if someone was rushing it, I would say. Except this just goes on in a much more graceful type of manner here. Okay, so I'm going to bring some of this down into my little turtles as well. Like some of them are kind of, shimmering in the light here, in the light areas. If there was a darker area, I wouldn't apply too much of this, if at all. We'll apply a little bit of it right at the base of this cresting wave, and maybe it'll kind of merge the two areas in with each other a little bit more too. But this is what we have right now. Okay, about like that. Now I'm going to take my paint pen and we'll apply some of those paint pen applications right up here. So instead of adding in darker areas in the shadows, I'm applying light areas in the lighter areas. Okay, so like the areas that I just applied a light, very kind of powdery looking application of pigment ink, I'm going and adding a crisp little dots of an extra fine paint pen. In the darker areas, I don't apply as much, because if in the darker area, you wouldn't have so many highlights because you don't have as much light in those areas. Applying some of these in the light shimmery areas. You can't really see it with a lot of light reflecting off of it, but if someone holds this up and kind of tilts it and it's kind of in a little bit more darkness, you'll be able to see these little dots a little bit more. All right, so that's what those waves look like. See that? You can't really see anything right there, but see like that? Those are my little dots like that. It's not a super like even application, but this is what you're going to be looking at most of the time like that. And you go like that a little bit, with those little highlights in there. But look at those waves there. Okay, so this is going to be paired with a photograph right here in a horizon card. So instead of reflection card, it's called a horizon card like that. But I'm going to put something on the horizon right here. You can put islands or something like that. I was thinking about using the a couple of the mystic images, mystic trees left and right here, I think. Or maybe just one or the other. we'll take a look here, and I'll come back with those images, and we'll get this piece finalized. All right, we have our photograph here. It's just a professionally printed, Costco photo print of some clouds. These are all on my website, not my website, but Flickr account, free for download and printing. I'm going to do this in some StazOn black. All right, just because it'll dry a little bit faster. And if I want to add a little bit of color to this, then I can. Actually, I might do some color with alcohol inks on there. So forget what I just said. Let's go with the dye-based ink, because if I color with alcohol inks, it won't smear the water-based dye application, okay? All right, so let's just use black here. I might add a little bit of tinge of green, or maybe I can add that tinge of green using my paint pens. Okay, so we're going to create this little inlet here. Let's go right over here, and then I'm going to stamp it on the other side right here. These are the Mystic Hills, Mystic Trees, I should say. Right. Okay, just allowing that ink to transfer. On the photo papers, the ink transfers really fast. That emulsion coating tends to grab it immediately most of the time. Get that ink like that. Okay, and we're going to do another one on this side. And this will be that little inlet right there. And it shouldn't look like the same image stamped twice, because we didn't even really get the back side of this. But even if it did, that's the way this stamp has been designed to be used, which is why I finished it off on this side as well. It doesn't just cut off. All right, we'll go like this. I'm going to stamp it a little bit lower too, I think, just for a little bit of variations of the tree. Goes, just, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 inch lower. Holding this down a little bit longer this time. Okay. We have that like that. Okay. And the way this is going to look is like this. Look at that. Is that pretty dramatic? All right. So I'm going to wait for that to dry just a touch, and then we'll go in here and we'll add a little bit of tone into these rocks, okay? And we're almost done here. A little bit of a stormy looking day, I think. I'll tell you what, let me see. Let's add, oh, I keep using these gulls, but these gulls look really good on everything. Go like this, right in here. And I might put a quote stamp in here as well. I'm going to look for one of those as this dries. The StazOn gulls are dry enough, but the other imagery is a little bit damp. Okay, I'm going to do a quote stamp here. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step is a better one for this with baby sea turtles, but I've done that quote with these baby sea turtles several times, so I am going to use kind of a related, I don't know if it's related, but another, I think, good quote for this scene. Yeah, I'll put it right up top here, about like so. Yeah, a little blotchy there. I pressed harder on that side. I might be stamping it on a different thing and putting it back up there. Bummer. Hey, it happens to me. Let's see here. Let's do it on this one right here. what I'm going to do here, actually. This might turn out pretty good. Okay, so see, I did a couple test impressions because you don't want to press too hard in some of these areas. It's what I'm always mentioning with doing this type of stuff like this, is don't press too hard in some areas, like letter form. This area is real slick too, but here we go, like that. So I'm going to put this right here, and I'm going to mount it on a little bit of a border like this, okay? Like around like this. I'll bring a little bit of color into this background as well. But I'll do a little bit of that shimmery texture like that, so we'll bring in some of that color from up down there, up into this area right up top. So, I don't know, maybe that'll look good too. We'll see. Okay, I've just kind of, I don't know, haphazardly added a little bit of tone to this. And let's frame that off a little bit with some of the same colors that I've used on that lower section. I use these two colors in like this whole bottom area. I'm going to bring in some of this tone into this a little bit, and we'll frame this off kind of in that vignette type of look, you know, where it's darker on the outside edge, lighter in the middle. Not extreme though, but let's just see how it goes here. In theory, this, you know, could be a even better way to do it because it's kind of following the same kind of lighting convention, color convention of the rest of the scene, but and it's just easier to stamp it directly onto the thing and not have an extra thing to do. All right. I'm wondering if I should add black into this as well. Let's go ahead and do it. Might as well. We've come this far. And plus I'm waiting for that ink to dry still on the other, you know, on the other impressions. On the photo paper. Okay, I'm not being careful not to add too much tone over my letter forms. Okay, so it'll look something like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount it on this paper right here. We'll get a little bit of a perimeter going. Like about like that, just a little tiny touch of that kind of glittery holographic around that. All right, now I'll cut this out and we'll take a look. Okay, I think that looks okay in there. We still need to finish off all this stuff down here, but I think in context, you know, being with the, you know, it'll be with that glittery surface down there. I think that'll look okay right there. All right, so I'm gonna add this in. Ran out of tape. All right, let's see if how this is going right here. This is like the juiciest area right here, but I think it's ready to be colored. All right, so we're going to be coloring with a couple different types of media here. I'm going to be going in here with some alcohol inks. And it's not going to be too extreme, okay? The imagery is fairly dark, okay? But I'll try to color with some of the tones that are in this lower section here, just to, create a little bit of a visual relationship with that area. And then we'll go in with our paint pens as well. All right, so here's a little bit of a greenish tinge. It's a really pale color, and again, it's, kind of going with my process of starting with something very, very light that barely shows, that just gives a little bit of a tinge of, what you're working with. Maybe this one's is like too light, okay? So let's go in with a little bit of a darker, let me grab this one. Okay. And alcohol inks work pretty well over the top of photo paper. It sits right on the surface and you can blend them around a little bit. It adheres pretty well and dries on photo paper. It's probably already dry to the touch. But if you go over it with another alcohol ink, what you end up doing is you end up putting what you've already laid down back into solution. Which, again, is the thing that makes it kind of easy to blend, with your alcohol blender pen, or you can go in there and blend it with lighter values as well. All right, this one's a pretty dark green, or just more, I don't know, visible maybe. It's not super dark, but just a lot darker than the previous ones. You can really see it. And I'm putting green down here. It's like, it's like splashing waves. It's, there should be like algae or seaweed growing on these rocks. All right. Going up the trunks of the trees. All right, that was a little bit of a brown tone. And going in here and just kind of blending it out a little bit. It was kind of an extreme kind of application of that color. So I'm just going in here and just kind of blending it around a little bit with a lighter value. It's kind of a lighter, duller color. So I start off kind of light, then I go darker, and then I usually go back with the light again to blend that out some. All right, here's a little bit of a blue color. Remember that was used on my Seaside Cove stamp. I'll bring it down in some of these rocks. Let's see, we could probably go a little bit brighter with some of this. I didn't use these pens, but I used these same colors, in pencil form. Now we can take a look at this and see what it's going to look like. Just like about like so. Let's spray a little bit of highlighting up here. Over white. Go with some greens up in the trees. How's that? Okay, that was yeah, kind of a Christmassy medium, yeah, medium dark green. Here's a much lighter green right here. Should stand out, I would think, a little bit or to quite a bit lighter. Let me see if I can show you. It. Get a little bit closer there. You can see a little bit better. And let's try white. There's a lot more dimension. It's, I don't know, it's not really showing in my camera right here too much. Or on screen. Okay, now white really is creating quite a bit of contrast. So I'm going to be a little bit more of a, apply a little bit more of a sparse application with this. It's not really supposed to be the color of the tree, it's just more of the, you know, the little highlights here and there. All right, hopefully you can see those in there. It kind of really brings the pieces to life from a dimensional standpoint, lighting, texture. Okay, there's a little bit of a horizon card like so. Now, kind of some final touches. I'm going to go in and apply some kind of mist. I'll do it around on this piece especially. I think down below it looks pretty complete as is. So what I'll do is I will take our cotton ball and go back to our Brilliance ink. And you know how this Brilliance ink is on this lower portion a lot? Well, we'll bring it up in this upper portion right here and create kind of more of a textural continuity with that lower portion, which, and it should bring the two pieces together kind of a lot more from a textural and lighting standpoint. Okay, so we did that with the pens too, but that was more of a crisp, real detailed application. This is doing it in a very light and airy way, and kind of a real feathery look. So I can apply it over, you know, some of these tree branches, coming over the tops of some of these rocks, maybe. It just gives it a real kind of light and airy feel. Okay, and at the base of some of these waves, maybe a little bit of a little crashing waves or fog and mist. Like this. Real delicate touch, okay? In other words, you don't have to be gun shy about application, but just apply very dry and with a light tap, okay? You apply it where you can't even really see it in many ways, okay? But only through repetitive applications, i.e. tapping, can you see it, okay? So it's never precarious because I'm just barely applying any at any given time. What happens is usually people aren't used to applying such a light application of something, so they get really impatient. They do a couple taps and they think nothing's happening, so they smash it down and they get these big blobs. And think, oh my god, it's so hard to do. But if they just take the time to just go like this for like 5 seconds instead of going like that, you know, trying to get it in like 1 second. I get it though, you know, it's like a lot of people, like, you just don't really apply such light applications of something. It's like, think about it like you're applying like makeup or something like that. You know, it's you know, trying to get it in this big, huge slathering, right? You just want to play it real lightly and controlled. And that's what we're kind of doing here. All right, this is really looking good right in here. Just kind of adding this lighting right in there. But look at that right there. Now, it's like really illuminating that tree right in there. I can't add as much over here because it's real dark down there. But you can really add it in the light areas like this. I'm putting some of these birds in a little bit of that too, so it's a little bit darker, a little bit lighter like that. Okay, and let's take a look again. Okay, see that little area of white like that? I'm going to take my, I'll just take a black Marby like this. I stamped my, or I mounted this a little bit low, so I'm just going to fill this in like so, right up top here, right along this line. Okay, like that. So instead of white, it's black. And then where you have these two meeting points like this, you know, it doesn't really show up anymore like that. Okay. Let me see. I'm trying to see. Let's see. Some of that mist, though, is right there. So maybe I'll apply a little bit of mist to that area. And some of that mist is right here. Yeah, looks good. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some spray adhesive to these two pieces. I think that'll be better than using the crafter's tape. I don't know, maybe. I guess that'll adhere in there just fine. Look at that shimmering light, though, on that water surface like that. That is pretty fun stuff. Maybe I'll just use this crafter's... No, but I'm out of the crafter's tape. I'd have to reload. I'll go do it. I'll tape it in there. You don't need to see me doing that. All right, there you have it. Our horizon card. Not to be mistaken with a reflection card. Reflection card's just where you use silver foil down here. All right, so I think this looks pretty good. I think that looks really integrated with each other. Look at that. It's like you can't even tell that that's like a separate piece of paper, I think. But then you get that, you know, that glittery, you know, holographic reflective quality on that water surface like that. So I think we've integrated this pretty well. It looked very different, but then you added in the shadows right in here, the colored pencils up there, Colored, a little bit of colored. I don't think I used too many colored pencils down here. A little bit, but that really helped it out in terms of that type of look in there. So yeah, that type of real glistening water surface like that. You might even be able to incorporate even more by bringing in like some Wink of Stella or like a little glitter types of applications in there. But I think that looks pretty good in terms of a potential technique, you know what I mean, going for. We have too many. I mean, a lot of these are based on, you know, other types of things that I've already done. Now, see this up here looks pretty good too, I think. Maybe it looks even better. I don't know. But having a little bit of that glitter, you know, to be up there and down there, I don't think it looks too bad. But yeah, that is really fun down here with your water type of element like that incorporated with this, you know, just white cardstock like that. I think that looks pretty cool. Let's see if there's any fine tuning. This right here, I'm gonna take a, yeah, let's take a brown here, kind of a sepia. Let's darken this area in just a touch. Okay, I tend to think that this area right here would be casting a shadow on this area down here a little bit. So let's darken that in just a touch. And maybe some of these waves a little bit more like this, if I can get it. I guess this pencil does apply to some of this bare paper. Not great, but enough. These are Prismacolors, so they're pretty soft. All right, let's take a look at it again. See, I just darkened the area just a touch. Actually, it's still pretty light. All right, but anyways, that is the scene. There's our glistening magical waters for our baby sea turtles to enter. And yet another version of the Horizon card. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, drop me a note in the comments section. And if you like these videos, hope you like, share, and subscribe. It really helps out the channel.